I never thought the biggest plot twist of my life would start with a half-hearted shrug from my boyfriend. It happened on an ordinary Thursday evening. I had just finished a late shift, and all I wanted was to collapse on the couch with some takeout and watch trash TV. Instead, when I walked into our apartment, I found Ethan pacing in the living room, like he was preparing for a courtroom confession. "Hey," I said cautiously, dropping my bag. "You look like you're about to break up with me or something." He stopped pacing. His face went pale. "I'm not breaking up with you," he said quickly. We need to talk." Those 4 words. Nobody ever truly recovers from hearing them. I sat down and crossed my arms. "Okay, talk." He hesitated. Ethan never hesitates. He's the type who orders at restaurants in 10 seconds and picks a Netflix movie in 3. But in that moment, he looked like someone who had no idea what words were. "It's my mom," he finally blurted out. I blinked. "Your mom? Did something happen?" He stopped himself, rubbed his face, sighed. "She doesn't want us to come to Sunday dinner anymore." Sunday dinners were a big deal in Ethan's family. Cozy, loud Italian-American gatherings with way too much food and generations packed into one house. I had been going for months. His mom, Linda, had always been polite, though a little distant. But I assumed that was because she was your typical suburban matriarch who had opinions about everything and everyone. "Why not?" I asked. "She doesn't approve of us being together." The room felt suddenly colder. "Okay, but why?" I asked. "Did I do something? Did she say something specific?" He hesitated again. "She said she prefers you not being around the family." I tried to laugh, but it came out sounding more like a cough. "Ethan, that doesn't make sense. I've barely spoken to her outside of dinners." He sat next to me, took my hand. "It's not your fault." "Then what is it?" "I don't know." He lied, and I knew it was a lie because Ethan can't lie to save his life. I pulled my hand away. "Tell me the truth." He stared at the floor. "She said she has a bad feeling about you." I scoffed. "A bad feeling? Like what? I give off evil stepmother vibes?" He didn't laugh, and that terrified me. "Ethan, just spit it out." He swallowed hard. "My mom said she thinks she knows you." That made even less sense. "Knows me from where? I've never met your mom before dating you." He didn't answer. I stood up. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan stood too, but slowly, like movement hurt. "She didn't explain. She just said she knew you, or recognized you, and that it made her uncomfortable." My heartbeat sped up. "Recognize me? From what?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She wouldn't tell me. She just begged me to keep some distance." I felt like the floor dropped from under me. The absurdity of it all hit me at once. "So your mom thinks I'm what? A long-lost high school enemy? A long-lost niece? What does that even mean?" "I don't know," he said again, but his voice cracked this time. That crack told me everything. He knew more, and he was terrified to say it. I stepped closer. "Ethan, what aren't you telling me?" He squeezed his eyes shut. "I promised her I wouldn't say anything." That was the breaking point. "You're choosing your mom over me?" "No." He reached for my hands, but I stepped back. "It's not like that. She said it was private, that it wasn't her place to explain yet." "Explain what?" Another silence. Another lie behind his teeth. I felt my throat tighten. "Ethan, if you don't tell me what's going on, I swear I'm walking out that door." His eyes snapped open, panicked. "Please don't. Then tell me." He took a deep, shaky breath, looked at me with fear and regret swirling in his eyes, and said 6 words that made my entire body go cold. "She thinks she's your biological mother." I laughed. I actually laughed. Like he had just told me his mom believed I was a reincarnated Victorian chimney sweep, or something equally ridiculous. "That's insane," I said between nervous chuckles. "She thinks she's my what?" Ethan didn't laugh with me. He didn't even blink. That's when the laughter died in my throat. "You're serious," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "She said she recognized you the moment she saw you. She didn't explain how. She wouldn't give details. She just said she knew." My stomach twisted painfully. "But that's impossible. My biological mother is dead. At least, That's what I was told. My adoptive parents had always been clear. I was adopted as a baby. My biological mother had died during childbirth. There was no mystery, no scandal, nothing dramatic. Just a tragic complication. End of story. Or so I believed. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I told her that. I told her it didn't make sense, but she kept insisting. She said she'd know her baby anywhere. A violent shiver crawled down my spine. Her baby, I repeated. That's insane. It has to be. But doubt, that tiny, unwelcome parasite, started burrowing into my brain. Why didn't you tell me this immediately? I asked, my voice cracking. Why hide something so huge? I didn't want to freak you out, he said softly. And honestly, I thought my mom was losing it. She's been stressed since my dad passed away last year, and I thought maybe she was just projecting. Or confused. Confused? I snapped. Your mom thinks I'm her daughter. That's not confusion. That's delusion. I know, but she talked about it like she believed it with her whole soul. She begged me not to scare you. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a fist. Scare me? I echoed. Ethan, I grew up believing I was adopted because my mom died giving birth to me. I know. And now you're telling me your mother, who I've known for months, believes she's actually my biological mom? And what, she faked her death and gave me away? He winced. I didn't say that. Well, then what is she implying? He had no answer. I paced back and forth, trying to catch my breath. No, this is insane. She must have mistaken me for someone else. Maybe I look like someone she used to know. That's what I thought, Ethan said quickly, like he was grasping for something rational to cling to. But she wasn't just saying you looked familiar. She was saying she recognized specific things. A birthmark, your eyes, even your laugh. My knees buckled, and I sat down hard on the couch. A disturbing memory flashed through my mind. A comment Linda had made months ago during a Sunday dinner. You have such a warm laugh, she had told me, smiling strangely. It reminds me of someone I used to know. At the time, I brushed it off. Now it felt like a puzzle piece snapping into place in the worst way possible. Ethan, I whispered, I need to talk to her. He froze. Absolutely not. Why not? She told me explicitly not to let you. She said she wasn't ready. Not ready for what? He rubbed his temples. She said there were things your adoptive family never told you. The world tilted. What does she know about my adoptive family? His silence was my answer. I stood up again. Ethan, if you don't take me to her, I'll go by myself. He grabbed my wrist, not roughly but desperately. Please don't go yet. Just give me time. Let me talk to her again first. I just don't want you to get hurt. Hurt? I repeated. The only thing hurting me right now is the fact that you and your mother are keeping secrets that apparently involve my entire identity. He looked devastated. I'm trying to protect you. Then be honest, I said. Tell me everything. His shoulders slumped. I only know one more thing. I swallowed hard. What? She told me she gave birth to a daughter 24 years ago, who she was forced to give up, and that she's been searching for her ever since. My breathing stopped. 24 years ago. I was 24. My hands trembled violently. Ethan, I said, my voice barely audible. What was the name of the daughter she gave up? He hesitated. Too long. Ethan, tell me. He looked me directly in the eyes, guilt drowning his expression, and whispered, her name was supposed to be Abigail. That was the name written on my original birth documents before adoption. I felt the room spin around me. Abigail. Not a common name. Not something you could guess. Not something you could accidentally connect. It felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. How do you know that? I whispered. She told me, Ethan said softly. When I confronted her, she said she had a daughter she named Abigail before she ever even held her. And when she saw you, she said your face hit her like a memory she wasn't supposed to have. My knees wobbled and I dropped onto the couch again, clutching a pillow like it was a life raft. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. Because if it was real, then everything I believed about my life was a lie. Ethan sat beside me, keeping a careful distance. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. I don't understand, I murmured. My adoptive parents told me my biological mother died in childbirth. Why would they lie? I don't know, he said helplessly. But deep down, I knew. Something in me knew. Ethan, this makes no sense, I said, shaking my head. Why would your mom give up a baby? Why would she let people say she died? Why wouldn't she look for me legally? Why is she just recognizing me now? I asked her all of that, Ethan said. She refused to answer. She started crying and said she'd explain when she was ready. When she was ready? I snapped. She had 24 years to get ready. He didn't respond. I buried my face in my hands. My heart felt like it was being squeezed and torn apart at the same time. Everything inside me screamed for answers. After a long, agonizing silence, I whispered, I need to talk to her. I deserve to know. Ethan flinched like I'd slapped him. I know, but she told me not to. I don't give a damn what she told you, I snapped, standing again. This is my life, my identity, my past. I'm not waiting around for her to be ready whenever that is. Ethan stood too. Please, let me talk to her first. She said, I don't care what she said, I shouted. You're asking me to trust a woman who might have faked her own death and hid me from the world. He winced. We don't know that's what happened. What else could it be? His silence was answer enough. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. Fear, anger, confusion, shock. They all swirled into a nauseating storm inside me. Ethan, either you take me to her, or I will find her myself. He looked torturously conflicted, like he was choosing between betraying his mother and betraying me. But I wasn't giving him a choice. This is not just about you two, I said, my voice breaking. This is about me. I need to know the truth. His eyes softened. I know, and I'm not trying to stop you forever. I'm just scared. What if this hurts you? What if the truth is worse than not knowing? I swallowed hard. I'd rather be hurt with the truth than comforted with a lie. He let out a shaky breath. Okay, I'll take you to talk to her, but promise me you'll stay calm. I didn't promise, couldn't, but I nodded anyway. He grabbed his keys with trembling hands. The car ride was the longest, quietest, most suffocating 20 minutes of my life. I stared out the window, trying to steady my breathing, but every streetlight we passed felt like it illuminated another hole in the story of my life. When we finally pulled into his mom's driveway, a cozy suburban house with a porch swing and flower boxes, my stomach dropped. The lights were on. She was home. Ethan looked at me nervously. Are you sure you're ready? No, I said honestly, but I'm going in anyway. We walked up to the front door. Ethan knocked. Almost immediately, the door opened, as if she'd been standing behind it, waiting. Linda's eyes widened when she saw me. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Abigail, she whispered. Her voice cracked in a way that made my heart shatter. My baby. I froze. My breath hitched. Ethan's grip on my hand tightened. But I didn't even feel it. All I could hear was that one impossible word echoing in my head. Abigail. She reached out toward me with trembling hands. I thought I lost you forever. I didn't move. I couldn't move. Her voice, soft, trembling, overflowing with something between hope and a heartbreak, hit me like a punch to the chest. I didn't know her. She was practically a stranger, but the way she looked at me, like I was the missing piece of her soul, it made my lungs tighten in a way I couldn't explain. Don't, I whispered, stepping back instinctively. The porch light flickered above us, casting shadows across her face. She looked older suddenly, or maybe just more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. Ethan swallowed nervously. Mom, please, we need to talk. She nodded silently and stepped aside, making space for us to enter. I walked into the house in a daze. Everything felt too bright, too quiet, too heavy. The air smelled like cinnamon and lemon cleaner, like someone had been anxiously cleaning for hours. Linda led us into the living room. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands shaking, eyes glued to me. I stayed standing. Ethan hovered awkwardly between us, like a referee terrified of both players. Linda finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted you to find out like this." "Like what?" I said sharply. "That you think you're my biological mother? That my entire life might be a lie? That everything my adoptive parents told me could be fake?" A tear slid down her cheek. "I didn't want to disrupt your life. You were safe. You were loved. That's all I ever wanted." "Safe?" I repeated. "Loved? They told me you died. They said my biological mother was gone." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "That wasn't true," she murmured, voice cracking. "They weren't supposed to tell you that." "But they did," I snapped. "Because why? They didn't want me looking for you. You didn't want me looking for you?" "No," she cried. "God, no. I looked for you. Every year, every birthday, every holiday. But the adoption was sealed, completely sealed. I had no legal access, no trail, nothing." "Why was it sealed?" I demanded. "Why didn't you fight it? Why didn't you keep me?" Her face crumpled, and then she told me the sentence that burned itself into my memory forever. "They took you from me." The room fell silent. Even Ethan froze, eyes wide. "What do you mean, they took me?" I whispered. Linda wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I was 17, pregnant, scared. My parents were strict, controlling, obsessed with appearances. They said a baby would ruin the family's reputation. They forced me into a closed adoption. They told me it was decided, final, non-negotiable." My skin crawled. "Your parents forced you?" I asked, voice trembling. She nodded. "They told everyone, even the adoption agency, that I agreed willingly. But I didn't. The moment I held you, just once, for maybe 30 seconds, they pulled you from my arms. I screamed, I begged, but they had already signed the papers for me." My stomach twisted violently. "That's illegal," Ethan whispered in shock. "In the 90s, she said hollowly, "things weren't as monitored as now, and my parents had money, influence." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. I was angry, but also horrified, but also confused, but also something else, something painful and hopeful all at once. "Why didn't my adoptive parents tell me this?" I whispered. "Because the adoption was sealed," she said. "They weren't allowed to tell you anything other than the official version, and the official version was that your mother died." "So, the government declared you dead?" I asked, horrified. "No," she said quickly. "But the agency wrote that I was unavailable, and your parents interpreted it the way that would make you stop asking questions." My head throbbed. 24 years of believing a lie. Linda reached out a trembling hand toward me, but I stepped back again. "Please," she whispered, voice breaking. "I never stopped loving you. I never stopped searching for you." I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. I don't know what to believe." "That's okay," she said softly. "I don't expect you to believe me immediately, but I can prove it. I kept everything, letters, records, even a photo from the hospital. I kept them in a box in my room for 24 years. My heart skipped. "Show me," I said. She stood shakily, wiped her eyes, and disappeared down the hall. The sound of a drawer opening echoed faintly. Ethan turned to me. "Are you okay?" "No," I said bluntly. "Not even close." A moment later, Linda returned holding a small wooden box. Old, scratched, clearly opened thousands of times over the years. She set it down gently in front of me. My hands hovered over the lid. I hesitated, because once I opened it, there would be no going back, no undoing the truth, no pretending my life was simple. I took a deep breath, lifted the lid, and the very first thing I saw was a faded hospital photo of a newborn baby wrapped in a blanket, with the name Baby Girl Abigail written in the corner in smeared ink. My breath caught, and then I saw it, the birthmark on the baby's shoulder, the same one I have, the same shape, the same spot. Everything in me collapsed. I stared at the photo, my mind unable to process anything except the impossible reality staring back at me. The same birthmark, the exact same shape, like a tiny crescent moon, same location, right on the shoulder blade. It felt like my entire body went numb. Ethan leaned in slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's you." I didn't answer, because answering meant accepting it. And accepting it meant my whole life. Every memory, every belief, every truth had just been shattered. Linda folded her hands in her lap, watching me with the expression of someone who'd been starving for decades and was suddenly offered food, a mixture of hope, fear, and overwhelming longing. "I kept it," she said softly. "They told me I wasn't allowed any pictures, but a nurse, she felt sorry for me. She took this one on her own camera and whispered, 'Hide this.' I've carried it with me every day since." Her voice cracked, her eyes never leaving mine. "I never let myself hope I'd actually see you again. But when Ethan brought you home for the first time, I knew instantly. I felt tears filling my eyes, blurring the photo in my hands. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I whispered. "I wanted to," she said quickly. "God, I wanted to. But I was terrified. How do you tell someone you're their mother after 24 years? How do you risk ruining their life twice?" "But keeping quiet ruined mine anyway," I said, my voice shaking. Her expression collapsed. "I know. I'm so sorry." I put the photo down gently, afraid that if I held it any longer, the weight of it might crush me. "What else is in the box?" I asked. Linda hesitated, then slowly opened the lid wider. Inside were folded letters with tear-stained edges, a hospital bracelet with "Baby Girl, Thompson" written on it, a yellowed birth certificate draft with my original name, a small silver necklace with a tiny heart charm, a stack of envelopes addressed to the adoption agency, all returned to sender. I picked up the necklace. "What's this?" "It was for you," she said, voice trembling. "I bought it before you were born. I wanted you to have something from me." I closed my eyes. It felt wrong, too intimate, too real. The room blurred through my tears. "My parents lied to me," I whispered, "all this time. They thought they were protecting you," Linda said gently. "From what?" I snapped. "From the truth? From you?" "Yes," she said, tears falling again. "From me." I froze. She took a shaky breath. "Because they were told I was unstable, that I didn't want you, that I signed everything willingly." That's not what happened?" I asked weakly. "No," she said firmly. "I fought, I screamed, I begged, I tried to run away with you, but security stopped me. My parents told the agency I was mentally unfit, so they'd process the adoption without delays." My stomach twisted in disgust. "They lied about you," I whispered. "They lied about everything," she said, "and I've lived with that guilt every day." Silence filled the room, thick, suffocating, electric with grief. I wiped my face. "Why didn't you ever confront them?" Her expression turned cold, a kind of bitterness I'd never seen from her before. "I did," she said quietly. "The moment I turned 18, they told me to move on. They wouldn't tell me where you were. They said I should be grateful you were placed with a better family. And when I tried to hire a lawyer, they threatened to cut me off financially." "And you believed them?" I demanded. She shook her head. "No, but I had nothing. No money, no support, no legal rights. By the time I stabilized my life enough to try again, the adoption was sealed permanently." I sank into the nearest chair, my legs barely holding me up. Ethan sat beside me, gently touching my back. "Babe, I'm so sorry." I didn't answer, because another thought hit me, a terrifying one. "Ethan," I said slowly, turning to him, "you knew all of this for how long?" He swallowed hard. 3 days. 3 days. 3. Whole. Days. 3 days, I repeated. "You knew for 3 days and didn't tell me I might be living a lie?" "I wanted to tell you," he insisted. "I tried, but she begged me to wait. She said she wanted to explain it herself. She said she needed time." "Time?" I snapped. "I didn't get time. I got blindsided." Ethan's eyes filled with guilt. "I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need air. I need time. I need—" "Please don't leave," Linda whispered. but I was already heading toward the door, because if I stayed a second longer, I was afraid the truth would swallow me whole. I stepped out onto the porch and gulped in the cold night air as if I'd been drowning inside. My thoughts were a tornado, violent, chaotic, and impossible to control. Behind me, the door opened softly. "Abigail!" Linda's voice trembled. "Don't call me that." The words came out sharp, instinctive, defensive. She flinched. I regretted it instantly, but not enough to take it back. I wasn't Abigail. I had never been Abigail. I didn't know who I was anymore, but I knew I wasn't her. Ethan came out after her, his expression torn between wanting to comfort me and wanting to protect his mother. "Please," he said carefully, "just talk to us." I turned around slowly. "I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to think. My entire life feels like it's been ripped in half." Linda's eyes shone with tears. I know, sweetheart, and I'm so sorry." "Stop apologizing," I snapped. "It doesn't fix anything." She nodded, wiping her face. "You're right, it doesn't." Silence settled for a moment, heavy, fragile. I wrapped my arms around myself to keep from shaking. "I need answers, real ones, all of them." Linda inhaled shakily and nodded. "Then ask me anything. I'll tell you everything I know. No more hiding." I took a breath that felt like it scraped my lungs on the way in. "First question," I said. "Why did you never tell Ethan about me until now? You waited months." She looked at her hands. "Because every time I tried, I panicked. I thought if I told him too soon, he'd tell you, and you'd run away before I could explain. I thought, maybe I could build a relationship with you first, even if you never knew who I was." That hit me like a punch. "So you planned to lie to me," I said flatly. "To protect you," she said, "or so I told myself." I shook my head. "You should have told me the second you recognized me." "I know," she whispered. "I was a coward." Another breath, another question pressing on my mind. "What about my adoptive parents? Did they know who you were? Did they know you were alive?" She hesitated, and that hesitation cut deeper than any answer. "Linda," I said firmly, "tell me." She looked up, her eyes pained. "I don't know for sure. The agency told them I was unavailable, which usually means deceased or unreachable. They weren't supposed to know anything real about me. But there were rumors. I heard through a social worker that your adoptive mother asked specifically for the closed adoption to stay closed." My heart twisted. "Meaning?" "Meaning she may have known there was more to the story," she said carefully. "Maybe not the full truth, but enough to guess something wasn't right." I turned away, gripping the porch railing so tightly my knuckles went white. Ethan stepped closer. "Do you want to call them, your parents?" "No," I said immediately. Because I wasn't ready. Because if I heard their voices, I might break. Because deep down, a part of me was terrified of what they would say, or not say. Linda stepped forward slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. "I don't want to take you from them. I don't want to replace them. I just want the chance to know you, even if it's only a little." I stared at her. This woman who might be my mother, this stranger, this ghost from a past I never knew existed. And then, surprisingly, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel rage. I felt grief. For her, for myself, for the life we never had. But grief wasn't enough to erase the betrayal. "I don't know if I can trust you," I said quietly. Her face crumpled. "I understand. And I don't know if I want a relationship with you." She nodded slowly, pain flickering across her expression. "I understand that too. And I don't know if I believe everything you said tonight." She closed her eyes, inhaled shakily, then met my gaze with the most raw sincerity I'd ever seen in anyone. "Then do a DNA test with me," she said. "Tomorrow, first thing. I will do whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm telling the truth." My breath hitched. A DNA test. Cold, scientific, undeniable, no emotions, no stories, just truth. Real, hard, impossible to escape truth. "I'll do it," I whispered. Ethan let out a breath of relief. Linda covered her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." I wasn't thanking her. I wasn't thanking anyone. I just needed answers. Because for the first time in my entire life, I didn't know who I was, and tomorrow a test might rewrite everything. The next morning felt unreal, like I was living in someone else's life, watching it play out from a distance. I barely slept. Ethan didn't either. I could tell from the way he kept shifting in bed, the way his breathing never fully settled. At some point around 4 a.m., I got up and sat at the edge of the bed, staring into the dark, wondering how everything in my world had changed in less than 24 hours. He touched my shoulder gently. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be." I wasn't sure I believed that, but I needed to say it out loud before I fell apart. We drove to the DNA testing center in silence, the kind of silence that presses down on you, thick and suffocating. Every street sign, every passing car, every stoplight felt like it was stretching time on purpose. When we pulled into the parking lot, Linda was already there, sitting in her car. She stepped out as soon as she saw us. She looked nervous, not the anxious, fluttery kind, the devastated kind, the kind of nervous you feel before you learn whether you're about to get the one thing you've prayed for your entire life, or lose it forever. We walked inside together without a word. The testing process was quick, horrifyingly quick considering the weight it carried. A cheek swab, a sealed envelope, a barcode, a technician telling us results would be available in 48 to 72 hours, just like that. Like it was nothing. Like it wasn't about to decide who my mother was. When we walked outside, I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me since last night. What happens if the test says we're not related? Linda's face fell. Then I won't bother you again. I promise. I'll leave you alone. And if it does say we're related, I asked. She swallowed hard. Then I'll still do whatever you want, even if you never want to see me again. I nodded slowly, unsure how I felt about either answer. We went our separate ways. Ethan and I drove home. I sat in the passenger seat, staring at my hands the entire time. When we got inside our apartment, he gently took my wrist. "Talk to me, please." "I don't know what to say." "Say anything." I sank onto the couch. "Ethan, what if the test is positive? Then at least you'll have answers. But then what? What am I supposed to do? Just suddenly have a new mother, a new family, a whole new identity?" He sat beside me. "You don't have to decide any of that now. You don't have to decide any of it ever if you don't want to." "But she's your mother," I whispered. "How does that even work? I'm dating you, and your mom might be my mom." Ethan winced. "I know. I've been trying not to think about that part." "We're not related," I said quickly, panicked. "Right? We can't be related. That's not possible. That would be—" He cut me off gently. "We're not related." "How do you know?" "My father wasn't her only relationship," he said awkwardly. "She dated before him, and I know for a fact she didn't get pregnant before she met my dad. They met when she was 19. You were born when she was 17. A wave of relief washed over me so intense it made me dizzy. At least that fear could be put to rest. I leaned back, covering my face with my hands. "I still feel sick." He pulled my hands down gently. "You don't have to go through this alone. I'm here." I studied his face, the sincerity in it, the worry, the love. It grounded me, just enough to breathe again. I thought the waiting would kill me. Every hour felt like a week. Every notification buzz made me jump. Every minute alone with my thoughts felt like falling into 1,000 what-ifs. I barely ate. I barely slept. My entire body felt wired with fear and anticipation. Ethan tried to distract me. Movies, games, cooking, walks outside. But nothing worked. And then, at exactly 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from the DNA Center's portal. My heart nearly stopped. Ethan looked up from the kitchen table, eyes wide. "Is that—" "Yes," I whispered. My hands shook violently as I opened the app. I could barely breathe, my vision blurred. The screen loaded, a spinning circle, a loading bar. Then, the results page appeared. At the top, in bold letters, parent-child relationship, 99.9998% probability. My breath left my body. My hands went numb. Ethan covered his mouth, and in that moment, that small, devastating moment, my world broke and reformed all at once. She was my mother. Linda Thompson was my mother. Everything I thought I knew was wrong, everything I believed for 24 years, shattered. A second later, my phone vibrated again. A text message from Linda. I saw the results. I'm here whenever you want me. No pressure. I love you. I dropped the phone and burst into tears. Not gentle tears. Full body, uncontrollable sobs. Ethan caught me, holding me as I shook, his arms wrapped around me like anchors trying to hold me steady. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." But I didn't feel steady. I didn't feel okay. Because now I knew the truth. And the truth changed everything. I cried until I couldn't anymore, until my throat burned and my eyes stung, and my whole body felt wrung out like a wet towel. Ethan didn't rush me. He didn't say the wrong comforting cliches. He just held me, steady, warm, present, until the storm finally passed. When I pulled away, my voice was barely audible. "I have to see her." He nodded gently. "I'll drive." Before I could doubt myself, before I could fall into another spiral of fear and anger and confusion, I grabbed my jacket and followed him to the car. The entire ride to Linda's house, I stared out the window, replaying everything she told me, everything I'd believed for 24 years, everything that had been ripped from me, or given back to me, depending on how I looked at it. By the time we pulled into her driveway, my heart felt like it was beating in my throat. Ethan placed a hand on my knee. "Take your time. I'll be right here." I nodded, stepped out, and walked toward the door. Before I could knock, it opened. Linda stood there, tears streaming silently down her face, hands trembling uncontrollably. She didn't say anything, and neither did I. For a moment, we just stood there, strangers with the same blood, strangers who should have known each other every day of my life. Then, something inside me cracked, not in a painful way, in a releasing way, a breaking open, a surrender to something bigger than anger, bigger than fear, bigger than confusion. I stepped forward. Linda let out a choked gasp, the sound of someone who'd been holding her breath for 24 years, and pulled me into the softest, most heartbreaking embrace I'd ever felt. I didn't hug her back immediately, but after a few seconds, my arms lifted on their own. I hugged her, and she sobbed, and suddenly I was sobbing too. All the pain, all the loss, all the fear, all the questions, all the years. They poured out of both of us in one long, trembling collapse. When we finally pulled apart, she cupped my face gently. Not possessively, not desperately, but with this fragile reverence, as if she couldn't believe I was real. "My beautiful girl," she whispered, "you grew up so strong, so kind, so brave." I swallowed hard. "I don't feel brave." "You are," she said, brushing a tear from my cheek. "You came here. You faced the truth. That's bravery." We sat together on the couch. Ethan stayed in the doorway, giving us space but staying close enough in case I needed him. Linda took a deep breath. "You can ask me anything. I'll answer honestly. No more hiding." So I asked. I asked everything. Why her parents had done what they did. How she survived the years after losing me. How she tried to find me. How she rebuilt her life. How she carried the guilt, the grief, the love. She answered every question through tears, holding nothing back. At one point, I asked the question that terrified me most. "Do you hate them, my adoptive parents?" Her face softened with something complicated, something painful, something true. "No," she said quietly. "They raised you. They loved you. They gave you a life I couldn't. I hate what happened, but I don't hate them." That answer broke something in me, in a good way, because I loved my adoptive parents, and I loved the life they gave me. And now, I didn't have to lose one mother to gain another. When I left that day, Linda hugged me again, but gently, without assumptions. "Whatever you want," she whispered. "A relationship, a friendship, nothing at all. I'll respect it. You choose the pace." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I could breathe. Ethan wrapped an arm around me as we walked to the car. "How do you feel?" I thought for a long moment. Tired, I said. Overwhelmed. Terrified. Relieved. Everything. He smiled softly. All of that makes sense. We drove home in comfortable silence, and for the first time, I didn't feel like my identity was broken. I felt like it was expanding. I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could have both families. Maybe I didn't have to choose between the woman who raised me and the woman who lost me. Maybe I was allowed to belong to both. 1 month later, I sat at a cafe with Linda. She brought old photos. I brought stories from my childhood. We laughed, we cried, we healed. Not all at once, but slowly, naturally, gently. We weren't mother and daughter fully. Not yet. But we were something new, something growing, something real. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I finally understood who I was. Not Abigail, not just the girl I'd grown up as, but both. Both stories, both lives, both mothers. And maybe that was enough, more than enough. It was the truth, and the truth set me free.